Okay, so our next topic is going to be, or feature, is source-specific multicast map feature. Okay, and again, our game plan overview for our agenda overview, we'll look at some of the use cases and the details and caveat, configuration, best practices, troubleshooting, and demo will be done by Daryl again, and additional resources. So, overview. First thing first, here we have a environment. Let's just say in our environment, we have source-specific multicast method of multicast delivery. So we have PIM, sparse mode, SSM running in our environment. So the network is supporting multicast. We have the source and we have the receiver. Well, the challenge here is with SSM, if you have receivers that support IGMP version 3, it's not a problem, right? Because these receivers with IGMP version 3, when receivers join a multicast group, they have an include and exclude option in the membership report that they specify, yes, I want to join this multicast group, but I want to receive it from this source, right? That's the ability, right? But the issue is with IGMP receivers that don't support IGMP version 3, which we have receivers, legacy clients, if you may, that only support IGMP version 1 or version 2. So in that case, what's going to happen when they are joining the group? Well, without SSM-Map, when these users, IGMP version 1 and version 2, or MLD for IPv6 version 1, right? MLD V1 for IPv6, their joins will be basically dropped because the network supports SSM and we need receivers with IGMP version 3. So then we know which group and which source they want to receive it from. Well, with SSM-Map, now when users are joining the group, doesn't matter IGMP version 1 or version 2, we take their request for that group and convert it into SG, source and group channel, where S is the source specified in the SSM-Map ACL. So we create the ACL globally and we map it, link it to the interface, apply it. So on these interfaces where we have legacy clients, right, we can take advantage of object groups and stuff within our ACL, nothing fancy there, right? We have done it, that's been around for a long time. Okay, we'll build on this, right? Just at least for now, we're trying to handle the legacy clients that do not support basically IGMP version 3, right? And then interface supported options, we have your L3, basically the SVI, the routed only init ports, the L3 lag, and sub interfaces. And then basically, after we create the ACL globally, right, and then we link that ACL with the SSM-Map to an interface, right? But that interface, we still need to make sure on the routing switch port, on that port, we need to enable IGMP version 3, where the receivers are IGMP version 1 and 2. When we receive those joins, we will convert those to IGMP reports for that group and map to those sources. Same thing with MLD, right? We will receive those joins from that MLD version 1 client and convert it to MLD version 2 report for the group and map it to those sources. Okay, now the dynamic IGMP version 3 and MLD version 2 reports for that given groups, part of the SSM-Map will be ignored. If they are outside the groups that we have the static for, that would be honored, but because the static takes precedent, right, over dynamic. Supported platforms, 6200 series, the 6300 series, 6400 series, the 8320, 8325, 8360s, 84, and the 10,000. Okay, now use cases. So here we are. We have our environment. As you can see, we have receivers that are doing IGMP, let's say version 2. We have the source on top, and the network has been enabled to support source-specific multicast, SSM, right? Now, PIM sparse mode domain uses SSM model to deliver the multicast, right? And SSM group range, basically, this is the reserve, the 232.0.0.0/8, right? That's the range. And then the receiver host runs IGMP version 1 or version 2, which is the legacy, does not support IGMP version 3. So again, we said when we receive without this feature, their packets will basically, we will just drop those joins. Now, here's an example of what kind of device or clients, if you may, right? Because these legacy clients that do not support IGMP version 3, such as your set-top boxes, right, do not support IGMP version 3. So when they join, they know they want to join this group, but again, they're not specifying the source, the include or exclude option within the IGMP version 3, what we have. So then here for applications that do not take advantage of the IGMP version 3 host stack. So we're just dealing with clients that are legacy, that don't support IGMP version 3. And also with this, see, one of the other things with SSM is also, in a way, is security. It adds a little security for our multicast, right? Because, you know, I want to join this multicast group, but I don't want to receive it from any random source. I want to receive it from basically trusted sources, right? And though in this case, we have source 13, 14, and 15, right? As we see on top. And those are the for the range, basically 232, 232, 1.1.0/24. So our source being those three, and we want to make sure that IGMP, these receivers that are IGMP version 2, for them to join that multicast group and receive only from sources of source 192.168.1.13 and 192.168.1.15. So with our mapping, when we create the ACL, we will take that source IP address and map it to the given multicast group, right? As you can see down here, right? 192.168.1.13 to 232.1.1.113, that group, and 192.168.1.15 map to 232.1.1.115, right? And then apply that to the interface. So to support these legacy clients, and they will receive multicast stream from that group, but from those specific sources. Some of the caveats here: unsupported when basically our VXLAN interfaces, and also IGMP reports in include mode will not be converted. So we support the include, not exclude mode, I should say, right? Sorry about that. So again, these are some of the options you have with IGMP version 3. If we say we want to include from these sources, right? I want to join this multicast group from these sources. Those are in an include mode you're sending, or you can keep it simple in an alternative way. I don't want to receive it from this IP ranges for this multicast. So that would be excluded. What's excluded, then everything else is included by default. Caveats: unsupported. I thought we just went through that. I'm sorry. We already done this. Why went backwards? Configuration. New ACLs, IP IGMP apply SSM-Map access list and the name of the ACL on the interface. Same thing with IPv6. IPv6 MLD apply SSM-Map access list and the name of the access list. When the new command for the show IP IGMP SSM-Map. We'll take a look at these here in the example. So to make things a little bit more interesting, we also added the object group here, right? So we have an object group, IP address, right? Source group. So these are our sources. Please note, when you're defining the source and the destination, right, or the group, they have to be /32. It's a unicast IP address. We do not support the keyword any. We do not support any kind of a masking of the source or the destination. So they have to be unicast. So again, we have an object group for our source. We have an object group for our destination group. We call it destination group 232.2.1.1 to 232 232.3.1.1. Now, we create the access list IP SSM-Map, that's the name, and an example being deny IP from this source being this multicast group. So these two, right? That's just an example, right? And permit IP from this source, right? And from that source for multicast stream for this destination 232.1.1.113. An example of /32 source /32 destination. But by default, even in the source groups, right, we have to use /32. It's a unicast IP addresses we use for our source, and /32 for destination as well. Once we created the access list, link it to the interface, IP IGMP apply SSM-Map access list, SSM-Map, right? Okay, some of the comparison, we of course we went through the Aruba or AOS-CX, right? We don't support this in AOS-S. Equivalent to what we have in CX and Comware. Here's a command for you for your reference. Now, best practices. So interfaces with SSM configured should be operating in IGMP version 3 and MLD. If you're running IPv6, then MLD version 2, right? So this is the device, right, as far as the routing switches. Now, the clients do not support IGMP version 2, but the interface that their gateway interface should be IGMP version 3, because we're going to apply the access list to it. So that you have to enable. And the good news is, when you enable IGMP on an interface, by default, it is IGMP version 3. So if the SSM-Map configuration is dynamically changed by adding or deleting source associated with the group, this will this would be effective from the next incoming join packets. Okay, so if there's a stream happening and you make some changes, that would be when the next packet, the join occurs, that would take place. SSM-Map configuration to be consistent across all L3 nodes. And please note, in the access control entries, must have unicast, as we just emphasized, right? That these source addresses must be unicast. Destination addresses must be also in as /32. The entry keyword any is not supported for source or destination. Okay, these will be ignored. Or if you use mask with masking of the source would be ignored. Let's say if you do /20 for any source, 192.168.1.0/24, that would be ignored. We need a /32. So IGMP version 3 and MLD version 2 dynamic joins will be ignored for groups in the SSM-Map, right? Because again, static takes precedent over dynamic. A simple way to keep in mind. And now, it is recommended not to have multiple access list entries with the same destination. Again, in a sense of ACLs, right? The first match, right? The first match will be honored. If a group has to be mapped with multiple sources, right? A source object group should be used, because in that source object group, we're just going to list all of our sources and then map that to that destination group. Troubleshooting, again, going back to the physical, know your topology, the physical cabling and everything needs to be checked. Another good command to keep in mind, if you're gonna do some, open up a tag case and so on, show tech IGMP is a good command that will pull a whole bunch of information in regards to IGMPs, anything with IGMP from enabling on the interfaces and snooping and all that would be pulled. Also, please make sure to verify, again, connectivity and neighbor relation between your neighboring PIM devices, and ping from your source DR all the way to the receiver DR to make sure that at least unicast routing is working, right, for this multicast to work. unless you're doing multicast static route. That's a different, right? Verify if the configuration is successful. Verify the PIM neighbors. You have valid neighbor relation with neighboring routers. Verify data path PIM forwarding multicast routing table. Verify IGMP operations on the interface. You want to make sure you have the right version of IGMP. You need to support IGMP version 3 on the router interfaces or the routing switches interfaces. Check the mapping of SSM-Map to make sure the right source and the groups are mapped, and also you're not using the keyword any, right, or a masks for source, which is not supported. Verify the configuration is successful. So nothing fancy on the left side. You can see we have the ACL, access list, IP, SSM-Map, ACL, and we have a permit any from a protocol point of view, but this is the source and that's the destination. And then same thing with IPv6, right? So when we look at multicasting verification, it's just not the ACLs, right? In this case, so in here we do see we have enabled IGMP snooping and so on for the VLAN 200, and you notice, of course, we have routing, unicast routing functioning proper, working, and then dynamic routing, multicast routing protocols been enabled, right? And then on the appropriate interfaces, we have the multicast, the unicast routing protocols basically configured, and then of course enable the IGMP, which by default is IGMP version 3 when we enable it on the interface. And then we have sparse mode for multicasting enable. With all that working appropriately, then we link the IP IGMP, apply SSM-Map, access list, and the name of that ACL, right? So everything needs to be operational for this piece to really work. Okay, so we just wanted to reinforce here what type of interfaces you apply this, right? On the SVI, routed only interfaces, like L3 lags and sub interfaces. Now, verify PIM neighbors. We can do show IP PIM neighbor all and take a look at all your neighbors, right? Appropriately on given interfaces, right? You have the interface VLAN 200 and you have neighbor on 1/1/10, for example, right? And you can see who's the DR and things like that. Good information there, right? Timers and everything. Verify data path PIM forwarding multicast routing table. So we show IP mroute. We can see what are our data path forwarding multicast. And we can see for this group 232, 10.10.10, and the source 192.168.201.12, right? It is a SSM mroute, and state is a route, of course, the incoming interface 2001 and the outgoing interface. Make sure those are all valid and they're pointing the right directions. Now, show IP IGMP to make sure the IGMP operation for giving interface here. Interface VLAN 200, we see IGMP version 3, right? This switch is acquired on this LAN, and the active group basically 232 10.10.10, and the operational mode is an include mode, which is IGMP version 3 include operation. Show IP IGMP snooping detail. So we have IGMP snooping enabled for VLAN 200 and IGMP version 3 here, as we can verify. As we verify here, version 3 is running, and for which group, right, as we just spoke about, and the include mode. Then we have check the SSM-Map, right? You can do this, show IP IGMP SSM-Map. So VLAN 200 has this ACL SSM-Map. That's a good sign, right? We have this appropriate ACL. The next thing would be also to verify, do I have the appropriate source and destination within that ACL? Show IP IGMP groups, so we can see the groups for 232, 10.10.10, the interface VLAN 200, and the group is being, again here, 232 10.10.10, and the reporter, the host, basically, the 192.168.214, and here we have, right? Okay, back to you, Daryl, for demo.
Okay, thanks.
Let me stop sharing. There you go.
Right, so this is my demo topology of A360 here. I have a source on the left. On the 201 subnet, this VLAN. I have a receiver here, a legacy receiver that only supports IGMP version 2. On the 202 subnet on VLAN 2002. So this SSM-Map feature, right, is basically enabled on the SVI facing the legacy receiver. Source can be remote using PIM on another switch, but what we're concerned about is the SVI facing the receiver. Basically, want to have the access list, the mapping state for this SSM group. Where is the source? Right? This to assist this legacy receiver. Okay. And on the SVI, you apply that here, the ACL using this command, so that any joins that come in from this legacy receiver will be sent towards this, will be sent to this source. So I'm going to show you a before and after again. Show you that the legacy receiver can't receive this stream, SSM stream, right? Because without this SSM map feature, and then I'll enable it, show you that it can now receive it, even though it's legacy, it doesn't support IGMP version 3. Here's the config. We have the ACL here, and this is the SVI. So if you notice the SVI, I have not applied the SSM map yet. So right now, if we look at the IGMP groups here, nothing. There's no 2.3.2.10.10.10 seen. So let's start. This is a legacy receiver. Let's try to get it. Try to join. So no video seen because we have not enabled the mapping. So you can see here, still no 2.3.2.10.10.10 group seen. Okay, next, stop this and enable the SSM map feature. On that SVI. Activate it, and now let's try again. Open the stream. Now he gets it, even though it doesn't support IGMP v3. Right? So if you look at the groups join, you can see group version 3, the reporter. So this is the reporter, 202.14. He's interested in this group and this source. Okay, so that's this feature and some additional resources. Thanks.